Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany. I am one of the directors of PAS Lead, which stands for Physician Assistant Students for Leadership, Equity, Anti-Racism, and Diversity. I am here with Karina, Deepthi, and Sonia. They will be presenting throughout this presentation. And the title of our presentation is You've Got a Friend in Me, Support During Your PA School Experience. We hope that this is helpful for you guys. And I'm going to turn it over to one of our co founders and current directors, Karina.
Hi everyone, hopefully you can hear me. So I just wanted to start with our agenda. We're going to quickly discuss our history of PAS Lead, evaluating what type of PA school experience you want with DEI questions to ask during your interviews, evaluating a program, scholarships, and also supports during PA school, what support could look like while you're in PA school, and then we're going to do a question and answer. Next slide, please. So what is PAS Lead? It started out of the PAEA talk back in 2020 in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And we were talking about anti-racism. And really, it was just all students throughout the country getting together on this Zoom talk. Oh, I'm sorry. Our slides can't be seen. I'm sorry, everyone. Just want to make sure everyone can see everything. Can everyone see the slides now? Okay, I'm just getting message. We'll make it like this so it's easier for everyone to see. So basically, what do we do as PAS Lead? We are a group of underrepresented minority PA students, PA class diversity representatives, allies. All of us just have the same purpose and goals, which is expanding and supporting resources throughout our institutions. And we'll have like quarterly Zoom meetings, active conversations on our GroupMe, our Instagram, and our website. The biggest thing that we do is we try to create this toolkit to create changes and policy changes within our PA programs. And we do this at the student level because we really realize that as much as we try to go to other groups, the ones that can really make the changes within your PA program are the students. So we have created toolkits that have helped people remove the GRE as a requirement for their PA programs, changing policy in terms of what is considered professional for natural hair, and a few other things that we have on our Google toolkit. Next slide. So this is just a brief timeline. Back in March 2020, COVID happened. This forced all PA programs to really go virtual. So everyone is already physically isolated. A few months later, May 2020 was the murder of George Floyd. The following month, PAEA tapped a town hall. That, like I said, thousands of us got onto that Zoom call. I personally was on it. I know I had shared a story that I experienced in PA school that was really isolating for me. It triggered me, and I had brought it up, but nothing was really done. So going to that PAEA town hall, discussing it, and receiving the response that I thought I would have gotten at school really made me feel seen, made me feel heard. And I was able to connect with other PA students throughout the country who reached out to me and said, like, hey, if you ever just want to talk to someone, message me. And then in that time, we also had our protests. And then in June 2020, we had our first PAEA meeting that we just came together and said, like, this conversation wants to keep going. Let's form a group. In the following months, we had meetings together, and we came up with our name, which was Physician Assistant Students for Leadership, Equity, Anti-Racism, and Diversity. And then September, we had our first national meeting. In November, we talked about the US presidential election and had certified PAs come and talk on a discussion panel with us about their experience in PA school, also being minority students. And then May 2021, the HOD, which is the House of Delegates, voted to change the name of our profession from physician assistant to physician associate. So next slide. And again, these are our goals. We're advocating for equity, anti-racism, and diversity within the PA education, because you all are really the ones that are going to be changing the environment. We share leadership strategies among students who are advocating for these changes. Like I said, there's no need for you to reinvent the wheel. If there is someone that came before you, made this change, we basically have outlines on these are the steps we took. This is the way we approached our faculty members. If you want to create a professional email just to even begin the discussion, here's a template. And that's what most students have been finding the most helpful. We also advocate for changes in policy and procedures to admissions and curriculum criteria of academia in order to promote more astute clinicians and have cultural humility. And we also want to just empower and support underrepresented minority PA students. Um, Again, to be in PS Lead, you don't have to be an underrepresented minority. This is also in collaboration with allies and helping us just create better environments for everyone on not only being underrepresented by race, but also by sexual orientation and people who are parents, people with disabilities. So those are our main goals. And just want to go to the next slide, which is evaluating what type of PA school experience you would want.
Hi guys, my name is Sonia. I'm one of the directors of PAS Lead, and just wanted to talk a little bit about how important it is to evaluate the PA program that you would like to attend. So when you are being interviewed, it's just as important to interview them as well. So some questions you want to ask include on this slide is diversity. So what are the university's diversity goals, and what does diversity look like to them? Make sure when you ask these questions, you're not kind of getting the runaround, and make sure that their values correlate with your values. As important it is to get into PA school, it's important to also stay in PA school. And if you don't feel supported, that's going to be really difficult. Um, Another thing you can ask about is the standard A111. The PAEA actually advocated for this diversity standard, and I'm just going to read off some things that the standard includes. The sponsoring institution must demonstrate its commitment to student, faculty, and staff diversity and inclusion by implementing recruitment strategies, implementing retention strategies, and making available resources which promote diversity and inclusion. So just make sure when you are being interviewed, you ask about these things and you make sure that your goals are matching up with that institution. Like I said before, an example of this is one of my peers asked a faith-based institution whether their LGBTQ plus patient curriculum would be impacted due to the faith of the institution. And they responded no, and she felt more safe and seen. So another question, however, I asked one of my institutions was, what did diversity look like to them and how they were implementing their goals? And a response I actually got from a director of the program was, I'm Caucasian, I'm a leader. And you will get answers like that. And it was super disheartening, but that confirmed for me that that was not an institution that was the best fit for me. So just make sure that you are interviewing these institutions because it's super important. So next we're going to talk about admissions requirements. So we want to go to the next slide and talk about how important it is to also look for those types of things within a program.
Hi, everyone. It's Tiffany again here. I'm doing a little bit of share screening too, so just bear with me. So one of the big things is, like Sonia was mentioning, make sure you're asking these questions at your interview, but also before you interview with the program, please be looking at their website. Please be out here looking at their Instagram page. These are things that the same question Sonia mentioned, you can look at their website and look at their Instagram and evaluate, like, are these important things to a program? In admissions requirements, you want to look for some of the things I have listed here that are holistic admissions requirements. I have a little study at the bottom that kind of supports this, that basically the removal of the GRE, which is something that Karina talked about, is actually a barrier to acceptance for minority and older students into PA programs. So programs that don't have that requirement, programs that still are continuing to do virtual interviews. Great if you get an interview, but if you can't afford to go to the interview, that doesn't increase your chances of getting accepted. GPA requirements. There are a lot of programs that don't have a minimum overall GPA requirement. They use other factors such as leadership. In my program, they use things like leadership, your patient care experience for in replacement of an overall GPA. They do have a prerequisite requirement. Recommendation letters. What type of recommendation letters does a program want from their students? Some programs say you must have a PA, you must have a doctor. For some applicants who don't have access to them in their work environment, those types of professions, that's hard. For me, I will speak. I applied to PA school, over 10,000 hours of patient care. I did not work with a PA every day until my last job 2 years before I started school. Because in the places I worked before, there weren't PAs, there weren't PAs working there. And then lastly, fee waivers. Supplemental applications, you apply to 10 programs, the more you apply to, the more you increase your chances. But if each one of them is $100, that's $1,000 extra. That is a huge, huge, huge expense in addition to paying for CASPA. Some programs don't have fee waivers for their supplementals. So meaning that you don't have to pay for that, which is a huge relief for many people. I'll speak for that myself. And speaking of fee waivers, we're now going to talk about the money. When you are looking at a program, you should try to be looking at what do they do to support their students financially in the form of scholarships. This infographic is from 2018 in terms of the monetary value, but we were looking up and found that as of March of 2020, the rate of income, the rate of tuition was increasing about 9% due to inflation. So these numbers are actually higher than this. So for example, we found that the average non-resident tuition was actually $95K versus $88K. So when you are looking at a program, some things to ask about scholarships are: check the program's financial aid website. Ask during the interview day. Some programs during interview day have financial aid there, or have the faculty should know if their program offers scholarships. Lastly, look for outside resources. At the end of this presentation, we have a Q&A session. Me, and Karina can talk about the scholarships that our programs gave us, in addition to the ones that we found outside. In a little bit, you guys will meet Deepthi, and she is going to talk about the scholarships that she has through her program and outside resources, and how they've impacted her PA education. And now we're going to talk about the big thing. You've made it into school. You've gotten accepted. What does support look like during your PA school education? I think that this is actually quite the most important part. Getting in, someone who took 6 years and 3 cycles to do so, staying in PA school and with support is actually quite harder in some cases than getting in, believe it or not. And I want to say this, and I'm being very transparent here, that when you have any identity that is not represented around you, PA school can be very isolating. And finding support during the program is just as equally as important as evaluating the program before. So I first want to start off with your program. I hope that your program director, these people I listed, are your biggest advocates in academics and throughout your PA education. I hope, but PA education also, in terms of faculty, has a lack of diversity amongst their faculty, which they are working on, which is why we need to increase students who get in, diverse students who get into programs. But some of that social and cultural piece is also equally as important. As a student who went to PA school during the pandemic online, I was in cardiology dealing with trying to pass the hardest course I had while simultaneously the zip code my family lived in was having a New York Times video recorded about them because they were ranked the deadliest zip code with COVID in the entire New York. Those two are very dual and different perspectives on and still having to perform during school. I put Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head here from Toy Story to talk a little bit about family as we tie into that. Family support is great. There's some things you want to be able to just talk to your family about that you can't talk to your classmates about. But for me personally, being a first generation student whose family immigrated from the Caribbean, the notion of what a PA is, no matter how long I've educated, is still just not grasped. I had my white coat ceremony last August. I sent them a picture. They're posting on Instagram, she a doctor. I'm like, I'm not a doctor. But in their minds, their experiences with PAs are limited in the town where I'm working with, where I'm from, and all of that. So they don't understand this profession. So talking to them about the nuances of PA education, which is something you can only experience if you have people who are around you who've gone through it. So your family's good for some things, but not everything. So I don't want to dismiss their support during the education experience. Lastly, look at fellow PA students. Look for people who have similar identities. And it may not be within your own program. I could say some of the people who I speak to the most are not even within my own program. They are maybe PA students from other areas. They are PA students from other areas. They are PA students who have graduated, who can just relate to I don't want to say the fraternity or the sorority that is PA school, but the PA school experience. And some examples that come to mind are the PAC, which is a physician assistants of color. They have a group me where students can just talk about just the societal things that impact school in addition to school, NABISPA, and so much more. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Sonia.
Hi guys, so I just want to talk about PAS Lead. Everything Tiffany said, I 100% agree with. And my cohort, it was difficult for me to find support within my cohort just because not everyone has been through the same walks of life as you. And during an interview, someone told me that the only people that will understand what you're going through is your cohort, which may be true academically, because when you have 2 exams per week, no one's going to understand that better than the cohort that you're with. But when their identities are different, such as like if you're not represented within your cohort, such as whether it's race or age or even parenthood, sexual orientation, it can be very isolating, just as Tiffany said. And I actually found PAS Lead through the AAPA conference. And I have never felt so supported and validated. And anytime I had a question or I felt like I was alone, I would message in the group me and people would immediately respond that they either felt the same way or gave me advice. So I think our free group me has so many different people that you will always find someone that will relate to something that you're going through. So it's super important to find those types of groups. And just like Tiffany said, the people that I talk to most are actually within PAS Lead. So I think multiple of these caucuses and organizations are something to definitely research and look into and join. I'm just going to now give Karina the floor so she can talk a little bit about the other organizations.
Okay, sorry, I'm having like some technical difficulties, but yeah, so I had very similar experiences as Tiffany and Sonia. My faculty, initially when I started, I went through three program directors, so I felt like there was a lot of waves of support. It's like you have a lot, and then it's like they're also going through their own um situations that they're trying to organize. And especially having been a COVID class, like physically you're isolated, and then your whole experience changes like from what you imagined. And I had to move away from home to go to PA school because commuting about 2 hours every day was not going to be ideal. And I don't recommend it, at least for a didactic year. Um, so it was a lot to go through. And then being a minority, I felt that a lot of people didn't understand my perspective at times. And not only being a minority, is coming from a single parent, not having um, the same type of lifestyle that most of my classmates were accustomed to. Um, I was a first generation, the first person to not only get into a master's program, but to even go to college and graduate. So I had a very different walk of life than everyone else. I also didn't get in until my fourth cycle, being very transparent. I had to do a lot of growth and figuring out what was working and what wasn't working. So I think that's also a big thing about PS Lead. A lot of us have trial and error. Some people got in like right away, and some of us took a while. So that's the great thing about our group, is that people who join us and people who even just reach out, like want advice, like we have so many different perspectives that there's someone that you can always find that you relate to. We have people who are parents. I don't know how anyone could be a parent and be in PA school, because I barely could take care of myself, let alone another person. So I give it to a lot of the directors who took on this responsibility. But just to talk about these other groups, there is so many things that you can join to find support if you feel like you are looking for that kind of involvement with other students. I am the student representative for the African Heritage PA Caucus, and through that, I've been able to grow so much, just meeting other PA students, finding leadership opportunities. I was able to qualify for their scholarship. A lot of these caucuses have scholarships specifically for their student members, and a lot of these memberships don't cost as much as maybe you would pay for someone to do a mock interview with you or edit your personal statement. Like the African Heritage Caucus, we had someone very last minute get an interview. They said, "Hey, can you be part of this panel with us?" And I said, "Sure, of course." And I was like, "I'm not doing anything on Valentine's Day anyway." So we did a mock interview. We gave all of our feedback, all of our different perspectives, me being a new graduate, people who aren't in admissions, people who've been in the profession for a very long time. And she emailed us back within a few weeks and said she had gotten in. But again, this is being a pre-PA student to some of these organizations are about 15, maybe at most $25. And you get all these extra supports that would cost you substantially more with private organizations. And the same thing with PAs for Latino Health. I'm their student outreach director, and we're trying to like really build a community for people, because there aren't a lot of PAs of color within the profession. I'm part of the LGBTPA caucus, PAs for Global Health, PAs for Women Empowerment. There's also PAs in Asian Health, the Veterans Caucus, and so many more official PA caucuses of AAPA that you can get involved in. There's also there's state PA organizations. I was part of New Jersey because that's where I'm from, and also my state organization for where I was going to school, because I thought it was important for me while I was in school to be part of the state organization where I was doing possibly many of my rotations. And who knew if I was going to move? I mean, in my heart, I knew I was going to stay in New Jersey, but um, there's also PA student societies. I was part of the House of Delegates the Student House of Delegates. That gave me the opportunity to be selected as a voting delegate, and I actually got to vote for the title change. And we also were able to be voting in other, it's called resolutions. It's basically things that we put forth to the House of Delegates, and it's saying like what our profession is going to take a stance on. So we took days to go voting over numerous resolutions, and we passed a lot of diversity resolutions, which I was very proud of. There's PAEA fellowships that some of the directors were a part of. I believe Tiffany was, and she can elaborate more on that. And then there's specialty organizations. If you know you want to be in orthopedics, there's you could join those organizations, and they also have scholarships. I wish I liked ortho like that, because I know ortho, their specialty organization has about like a $5,000 scholarship, and they select 2 students or something like that. But again, there's numerous scholarships in different organizations, and there's also just volunteering and mentoring. Like even when you become a PA student, you can be a mentor. I did it for a lot of organizations, because you're going through the process so soon compared to maybe somebody who went to PA school 10 years ago. And like all the things that you learn, errors, tips and tricks, you can pass it on to somebody else and like really help them out and hopefully get them into PA school. I'm gonna let Deepthi talk now, because I think I've been rambling for too long.
Hi everyone, Tiffany again. So I am going to, Karina talked a lot about getting involved, which is these next points about volunteering, a PA House of Delegates. So now we're going to talk about what support can look like at the right PA program, a current PA's experience. We are now going to have Deepthi, one of our directors, talk. We've been talking a lot about what evaluating a program for what for their DEI initiatives, what support can look like in a PA program. We wanted to show you a tangible experience of one student at a program that, after meeting her program director, we can all say is very supportive of their students. The program was just spotlighted on the AAPA Instagram. And Deepthi is going to talk about basically what happens when, I want to say, the perfect storm in a good way of all supports come together in your PA school experience. So Deepthi, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deepthi Krishna, and I'm a clinical year student at Canisius College in Buffalo, New York. Like Tiffany said, I'm a very non-traditional student. I've had a long gap in my career. I'm a mom, so I'm non-traditional in every way you can imagine. And before I applied to programs, I made it a point to actually call all the programs to make sure that they do accept international applicants, because I did not want to go through the process of applying and then being denied, saying that we don't accept international students. So the moment I called them, the way that my college faculty answered the phone call gave me a lot of positive vibes. And it's just like, even though they're interviewing us, we are also interviewing if that program is the right fit for you. And the reason I liked this program was they did not have a GRE requirement. They were open to accepting international students. And after getting in, I want to share like how much support I've received from my program and how it helped me to focus on education and not worry about financial stuff. Because being an international student, I don't qualify for all these student loans and FAFSA, because I don't have an American citizen to co-sign my student loan application. So I think I'm very blessed to be in my program. And to start off, our program is recipient of Mother Cabrini Foundation Scholarship, which awards 7 students in each cohort a scholarship to the amount of $45,000 towards their tuition. This is not a legacy scholarship program. Our director applies to this program, to the scholarship fund, and then they approve it every 2 to 3 years. So the second cohort also, there was an additional 7 students who received the scholarship in the amount of $45,000, which is a huge relief financially for students, and it helps them to focus on their education. We also have an African American, Latinx American, Asian American, and Native American students foundation called Alana Student Center that also helps with limited amount of scholarships for students belonging to these identities, helping them to purchase books and equipment that might be needed. And I was also fortunate enough to receive a local family foundation to cover all the additional certification that I wish to acquire, like they covered for my ACLS, BLS, PAL certification. It's from called Mosey Family Foundation Scholarship. And I was also offered a tutor position where I can tutor the next cohort below me. And the hours are very flexible. I get to choose when I want to do it, or how I want to do it, whether I want to do it in person or do I want to do it over Zoom. And being a mom, it's not easy, and I'm in my clinical years, so I get to choose my hours, and they offer, it's like basic pay, $13.20 an hour, and I get to choose like anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. Next slide, please. And additional support that my program provides, not only to me, but for every student in the cohort, is we have a food pantry. We know that PA school is so stressful. You don't actually have to have a food insecurity. You may be busy, you may be hustling so many things. You may not have time for meal prepping. So we have a refrigerator, a microwave, a coffee station, a food pantry where you get to, have like pasta or cereal, and you just get to eat there, or you're even welcome to take the food home. We also have a professional clothes pantry because we know how expensive these professional attires can be. So my director and faculty, they started a professional food pantry. Most often times, there's still tags hanging on them. So my faculty and my program director has been supportive in every which way to support our students to succeed in our program and graduate with, flying colors. People who don't have cars, they're also given the option of getting a metro bus and rail pass. And just outside our science hall building, there is a rail station. So you can actually go to the sites within downtown Buffalo. And our program also provides subscriptions, which is included as part of tuition, for Osmosis, PEPID, which probably you will use more on your clinical year rather than your didactic year, and Roche Review. We get didactic Roche Review during the didactic year, and they also pay for the PANS Q Bank during your clinical year to help you prepare for your PANS exam. So this was very interesting and very helpful because in the first semester, our program director noticed that students who could afford paying for these additional supports like Osmosis, Roche Review, and all were doing well compared with disadvantaged students. So my director got an additional funding of, I think, about 273, I may be wrong, but like $250,000 million in funding. And then she applied for all these Roche Review, Osmosis, and for every student in the cohort. We are also given membership for our New York State Association for Physician Assistants. Our program is very big on advocating for our profession and for our future careers. So we advocate at the grassroots level, starting with students and the recent town hall. And then when we had to call our state senators, email them, our our program had like 100% participation, and the NISPA leaders, they all acknowledged that, and it was posted on social media as well. And we are given NISPA membership throughout the student your program of 27 months. It covers the 27-month period, and it gives you a lot of networking opportunities. It gets you up to date on legislative advocacies that are going on that relate to PA profession. You get to know a lot of stuff, like similar experiences people might be going through. So I think getting involved in your local, state, and national PA association is very important, one for advocating for ourselves and our future profession, and also creating, we need this advocacy efforts. Even if you're not actively participating, I feel like just paying for membership itself will fund the advocacy efforts. And then our program also has like a prayer room to accommodate students from other religions, and they accommodate their religious holidays, and they accommodate them. Like currently there's the Muslim faith students are fasting. They're having the festival of Ramadan, so they get to I think they offer prayers like 5 times a day, so they have this room allotted for themselves so that they can go and practice their faith. And our program also has funds set aside for students who are willing to participate in AAPA and New York State Society of PA Associations, their annual conferences. They support us and help us in every which way. And our program is also involved in interprofessional collaboration education, which gives us the opportunity of earning digital badges that we get to put on our digital resumes. And that's very helpful when you're actually applying for jobs. And that was recently awarded recognition from a lot of institutions locally and statewide. Next slide, please. So apart from the support that I've received from my program, I mean, being an international student and not being an American citizen, I don't qualify for a lot of the scholarships on PA Foundation and like a lot of opportunities. They don't accept international applications, but I was lucky to receive Tylenol International Scholarship Foundation. It's from Tylenol. It's called Tylenol Future Care Providers International Scholarship. And I also received a scholarship from my local Western New York PA Association. I received a scholarship from them as well. And I received another scholarship from Mosey Family Foundation. And all these helped me to pay my tuition fee and the burden of finances on my shoulders. So it helped me a lot. We also have access to Access Medicine through our program. So I did not have to buy any medical books. So that helped me as well. And all this support helped me to succeed in my didactic year, and it's also helping me in my clinical year. I think like all this would give you an idea of what to look for in a program when you apply. Even though my program is like a baby program, I'm from like the first cohort. The program began with me, and I'm in the inaugural cohort. But I think my program set me up and my fellow students and classmates for success. And we're all doing so well because of all the support that we've been receiving. And getting support from your program is very important for you to succeed as a PA student. Now I'm gonna pass on to the next speaker.
Hi guys, so this is just a slide kind of showing some stuff that PAS Lead has done. So for example, we have our BOD meetings, we do have monthly meetings with all the directors just coming together. We hosted an RSJ Racial Social Injustice Conference last year in December. And in the right-hand corner, we have a picture of a couple of our allies. And above that, we actually have a screenshot from our RSJ conference where a speaker said that it only takes 10% of a cohort to create a change. And I think that's super important when you're feeling a little bit discouraged, that it does only take just a few people to see that change, especially with DEI. And so next, we can go to the next slide. So we're just going to talk a little bit more about some positions that we have available if you do want to get more involved with PAS Lead, not just joining our group me. So we do have our social media chair open. We usually have that position filled by a pre-PA student, or pre-PA, sorry, not student, my bad. Currently, I am covering the position until we find somebody, and I have a lot of fun with it. I get to use my artistic abilities a little bit and work with Canva. Only have to post around 3 times a week and just engage with our stories and answer a couple of questions if we have any messages in our DMs. So please reach out to us if this is something you're interested in. You do get to join in our meetings, and it's a super fun way to kind of get engaged with the physician assistant, I guess, program, and just seeing what else you can do within the program. Sorry, now I'm like just rambling. But yeah, so besides our social media chair, we also do have new directors, which positions. So I'm going to leave the floor open to Tiffany.
Hi, so I was just going to talk about this very quickly. Our board of directors positions is once you get into PA school, because it is these board positions are held by PA students. So we really look forward to hopefully once you all get into PA school, because you all will get in, eventually becoming a director and creating change within your programs. But this is also our information on here with our Instagram. Like Sonia said, you can always message us. We've recently had a pre-PA workshop earlier in the month, and Deepthi's program director, who was just like such a fresh breath air. I can't think of the thing right now, sorry. She was so amazing, just hearing all the advocacy work she does on a administration level, applying for all these types of scholarships, creating all these supportive resources for education, but also trying to think of like all the other determinants, like creating a pantry for food or for clothing, because these are small things that maybe people don't think about. Once you got into clinical and you have to wear business clothes, you know, that does add up to a lot of money. We're spread so thin because when you're in P school, you're, for the most part, people aren't working, because it's very hard to find time. But on our next slide is just really, we're opening the floor to questions and answers. If you all have any more in the chat or want to ask us. But again, we recently had our pre-PA workshop. I believe we are putting it up on the website soon if it's not already there. The Canisius PA program director, she answered a lot of questions that the PA students had, and you can take a look at that if you have any more questions afterwards, or you can message us. Like, we made ourselves available. We said if there's pre-PA students, you can't afford to have someone look over your personal statement, you can reach out to us. A lot of directors have experience with this. If you want someone to read it, I had 2 students reach out to me. I read it, I edited it, I gave my feedback, and I said, hey, this is my personal opinion. If you are still able to go to the writing center at your school, go to the writing center. That's a free resource. Ask anyone you're shadowing, a doctor or a PA or anyone. Ask your friends to like listen to and give you your honest feedback. The more people that read it, the better that you can make it. Honestly, I personally don't think that you need to pay people to read your personal statement, because sometimes some of these people aren't even in admissions. So, they don't really always know for sure what a program wants to hear or read about. And on the slide, we also have our information, our personal information, if you want to get in contact with us. But again, you can contact us through the PAS Lead Instagram, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.